was working on a 3D model in Lightwave that required a hole in a curved sub-D surface. I wasn't having much luck, but a web search turned up a tutorial by Richard Yote, maybe? Here's the YouTube link. Now Richard's tutorial is for Moto, but I thought I might be able to do something similar in Lightwave. Here's what I came up with. So let's start by creating a box, dragging it out, holding the control key to keep it square. And I'm going to set my X segments to 12 and my Z segments to 12 and enter to commit that, F2 to center it. And I'm going to make a copy of this, so switching to polygon mode and Control C and Control V over to a different layer. Because I'm going to use the same thing for my curved surface later. Now putting the plane in the background and starting a new layer, I'm going to choose the disk tool, again holding the control key to keep it circular, drag out. Now Richard set his sides pretty high to keep it smooth. I'm going to do the same here. Not sure how much it matters in this case. Then we're going to, in the back view, drag it out just so I've got enough to go through my surface and through the curved surface later. Put the cylinder in the background, and now using polygon mode, paint out an area that you want to delete out. And we'll just delete those out, change to edge mode, select the edge that goes around, hit the right arrow key to select the loop, and now we can switch over to modify heat shrink. Make sure you're in the sphere mode and drag out the amount to 100%, which will wrap it around your background object. You can drop your tool, hitting enter, commit it, and then drop your selection. So I want to create an edge loop here, so I changed to polygon mode and select around the hole. And in Lightwave, the way I found to do this, there may be another way, but I use multiply slice, and then holding down on the control key, which brings you to the middle of the line segments. You just kind of march around, hitting your left key and creating points around there. And this will give you an edge loop. Now once you have your edge loop created, you can change over to detail, edit edges, and holding down the left key you can slide that, whoops, I hit the right key, sorry. Holding down the left mouse you can drag that loop. But for our particular example, leaving it in the center seemed to work the best on especially the curved surface. Now at this point we have some triangles and some n-gons. If you go to polygon mode and then your polygon statistics, you can see the triangles here and also the n-gons in the corner there. So what I did was go to edge mode and select the edges in the corners here, and then over on the construct, weld edges, and it gets rid of this. And the nice thing is that it removes the 2-point polys that might occur if you used weld points. Now we're able to tab to change to sub-D surfaces, and we've got a nice smooth surface there. Alright, so now on to the curved surface. We grab our plane that we made a copy of early on, and we're going to change over to the modify bend tool, and holding down the control key in the back view, control key gives us the 15 degree increments. We can slide this down to 90 degrees and get our center up there, and now we can commit that, and then over in the right side we can switch to rotate, and again holding down on the control key to keep the 15 degree increments, and in the mouse selection mode there we can drag that up minus 45 degrees and got our surface aimed up where we can cut our hole in there. Also going to use F3 to rest it on the X line, so pick Y and say rest on ground, and that'll set it even with the X axis. Y equals 0. Alright, so now we can put our cylinder back in the background, and as long as it's cutting through there, then we're ready to go. If not, you can switch over to that and move that cylinder up where it's cutting through your surface. So now, just like before, we're going to, oops, forgot one thing. Let's make sure we get a copy of this curved surface. So in polygon mode, Control C, go over to another layer, and Control V to copy it in. We're going to need that later to smooth out our hole. Okay, switching back to our curved surface and putting our cylinder in the background. Now we just paint out the polygons we want to remove, delete those out, change to edge mode, select your edge, right arrow key to get your loop, and now modify heat shrink, and make sure in sphere mode, drag it out 100%. Now you can see that it didn't go exactly the way you wanted, but we're going to get there in just a minute. Drop our selection, and we're just about ready to go here. We're going to create our edge loop just like we did before. Select those polygons, change over to the multiply and slice, and holding down the control key, we'll find the center of our line segments and march around here and create an edge loop. And like before, we're going to leave this edge loop in its center position because that seems to work best. Switch over to your edge mode and grab those 4 edges, and then changing over to construct weld edges to remove those, and now we've got all quads, and we're ready to hit tab and change into a sub D mesh, and we've got a nice smooth surface. Not exactly what we're looking for, but we're getting there. So the next step now is to drag this up into our smooth surface here, and I'm going to change that over to a sub D surface as well. I'm not sure how critical that is, but that's what I've been doing. It seems to work fairly well. So now we're going to go over to modify heat shrink, and this time we're in sphere mode right now, but we really need to change that over to the Y mode because we're trying to drag up all the points to this other surface, which is directly above in the Y direction. So now we drag this out to 100%. It pulls it up to your background curve, and there's still a little bit of discrepancy here which can cause some slight dents over in layout, but seems to work pretty well. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and create a surface hitting the Q key. I'm going to name it glossy, and we'll set it to 70 on diffuse, 30 on specular, and smoothing. It just allows us to see with reflections how we're doing. Now you'll see these little pinch marks, and those don't appear to show up in layout, so I think we're okay, but they are there where you get the polygons around the single point, 5 polys around a single point. You can barely see the dents holding it in certain areas, but overall not too bad. My next step here is to thicken the surface, multiply, thicken, and I'm just going to drag it out and get a little bit of a thickness there. And then change, hit tab to switch back to non-sub D mode, and I'm going to add some edge loops. So we're going to go to detail, edit edges. I've got a shortcut key for that. I'm going to change over to the textured wireframe mode so I can see what I'm doing here. Right click to create the loop, and then you, with your left key, you can move it around, and I'm going to 85% there. That seemed to work pretty well for me. Create another edge loop, drag that down to 85, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the outer edge. So we'll smooth over here, still have the tool operating, right click to create the edge loop and drag it up to 85%, and create one more, drag it down 85%, and we're pretty much there. We still all have quads, so we can hit tab and get us a sub D surface with a hole in it. So I've loaded my model over in layout, and I'm using VPR so I can sort of inspect my surface here, and overall things are looking pretty good. I don't see any dents on the top. It's holding up pretty well. I've seen a little bit of dents on the bottom, but that'll be up to you whether you think they pass or not. If you swing it around here a certain way, you can see a slight dent. There it is, right up there on the left side of the hole, but not too bad.